Did you know that tourism is one of the fastest growing industries in the world? In 2019, over 1.5 billion people traveled internationally. That's roughly 1 in every 5 people on the planet. While traveling can be exciting and enriching, there's a darker side to this boom. In fact, a recent study showed that mass tourism is responsible for up to 8% of global carbon emissions. In many famous locations, the effects are startling. For example, Venice is sinking about 1-2 millimeters each year, thanks to the weight of the tourists walking its streets. In places like Machu Picchu, daily visitors often exceed what the ancient site can handle. Over 1.5 million tourists trek there annually, threatening its very existence. These shocking numbers reveal a troubling truth: our desire to see beautiful places can lead to their destruction. In this video, we will dive into how mass tourism is harming the world's most stunning locations. We'll uncover the environmental costs, the loss of local cultures, and the creative strategies cities are using to combat these issues. So buckle up and get ready to rethink how you travel. Your next adventure could make a world of difference if you choose to do it wisely. Chapter 1. The Beauty Trap. Why everyone wants a selfie here. Mass tourism is everywhere, and social media plays a big part in that. Have you ever scrolled through Instagram and seen the same spots pop up over and over again? Places like Santorini, Bali, or Paris get millions of tags daily. Why? People are driven by the desire to capture picture-perfect moments. It's called FOMO, fear of missing out. No one wants to be the only one without a photo in front of the Eiffel Tower or Santorini's blue domes. But here's the problem: this obsession with snapping the perfect shot is hurting these places. According to a 2019 report by Statista, over 90 million people visited France, and a huge chunk of them went just for the photo ops. The result? Historic sites are crumbling under the weight of so many visitors. Venice, for instance, is sinking faster, partly due to mass tourism. And it's not just the physical structures, it's the local culture that's taking a hit too. People arrive for the gram, but they leave behind destruction. Tourism experts often refer to this phenomenon as the beauty trap. Sites become so popular that their own attractiveness becomes their downfall. Popularity pulls in crowds, but those same crowds drive away what made the place special. So, how do we break free from this trap? It starts with changing how we think about travel. The focus needs to shift from what's popular to what's meaningful. Instead of chasing Instagram trends, why not seek out less famous spots that offer a more authentic experience? Influencers, too, have a role to play. They can shift the narrative by promoting off-the-beaten-path destinations or by emphasizing more respectful, low-impact travel. In fact, there's a growing movement of influencers who do just that. They're showing people that travel doesn't have to be a race to capture the most Instagrammable photo, but can instead be about deeper connections with people and places. Chapter 2. Footprints in Paradise. The environmental cost of overcrowding. The environmental cost of mass tourism is staggering. Take coral reefs, for example. According to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, about 75% of the world's coral reefs are threatened by local pressures, including tourism. In places like Thailand, popular reefs have been shut down to tourists because of the damage caused by millions of snorkelers and swimmers. Coral can't survive constant human contact. It's not just the oceans that are feeling the strain. Popular hiking destinations, like Mount Everest, have been so crowded with trekkers that they leave behind tons of waste. The Nepalese government reported that in 2019 alone, more than 10 tons of trash was collected from Everest, mostly left behind by eager adventurers. This kind of impact isn't sustainable. But the good news? There are strategies in place that can help. Destinations around the world are starting to recognize the need for limits. In 2018, the Philippines temporarily shut down Boracay Island to clean up after years of environmental abuse from over-tourism. After a 6-month closure, the island reopened with strict regulations, including limits on the number of visitors and bans on certain types of development. This kind of controlled access is one solution to protecting fragile ecosystems. Another strategy is encouraging eco-conscious travel. More travelers are looking for ways to leave a smaller carbon footprint, from staying in eco-lodges to taking trains instead of planes for shorter distances. In fact, a recent report from Booking.com found that 70% of travelers are interested in eco-friendly accommodation, showing that the demand for sustainable options is on the rise. If more people choose these alternatives, it could make a huge difference in reducing tourism's impact on the planet. Chapter 3. Vanishing Cultures. How locals are losing their heritage. When mass tourism takes over, it's not just the environment that suffers, it's the local culture too. Have you ever visited a place only to feel like it's more of a theme park than a real community? That's the result of cultural commodification, where local traditions get watered down for tourists. Instead of authentic experiences, travelers often get a commercialized version that feels fake. Take Bali, for instance. The island is known for its rich spiritual traditions, but mass tourism has transformed many sacred ceremonies into performances for visitors. Locals often complain that their customs are being reduced to entertainment. A 2020 study published in the Journal of Sustainable Tourism found that over 40% of locals in heavily visited areas felt that their traditions were negatively affected by tourism. But it doesn't have to be this way. One strategy to combat this issue is slow tourism, which encourages travelers to spend more time in one place and engage deeply with the local culture. Instead of rushing through a city in 48 hours, slow tourism invites visitors to get to know the people, learn about their customs, and support local businesses. This not only helps preserve the culture but also boosts the local economy. Governments are also stepping in. In Barcelona, for example, residents have protested against mass tourism, which they say has driven up prices and forced locals out of their neighborhoods. In response, the city has introduced measures to regulate Airbnb rentals, limit the number of tourist buses, and redirect visitors to lesser-known areas. By spreading out the tourist flow, they're trying to reduce the pressure on the city's most iconic spots while preserving the local way of life. Ultimately, the key to preserving local cultures in the face of mass tourism lies in respect. Travelers need to remember that they are visitors in someone else's home. The more mindful we are of the cultures we encounter, the better chance we have of keeping them alive for future generations. If you find this content valuable, consider subscribing. Join us on this journey to explore more about responsible travel and how we can all make a difference. Chapter 4. The Price of Popularity. When iconic sites start to crumble, when a place becomes famous, it often pays a heavy price. Historic landmarks and natural wonders can't handle the millions of people walking over them every year. Take Machu Picchu, for example. This ancient Incan city was never built to support mass tourism, yet over 1.5 million visitors trek up to it each year. To protect the site, Peru's government has introduced strict limits on the number of daily visitors and even restricted certain parts of the ruins. Without these measures, Machu Picchu might not survive the next few decades. Another example is Venice, which attracts around 25 million tourists annually. That's almost 70,000 visitors every day, in a city where only about 50,000 people live. The overcrowding and pollution from cruise ships have pushed Venice to the brink. In 2021, Italy banned large cruise ships from the city's historic center in an attempt to reduce the damage. But the city is still sinking, about 1 to 2 millimeters per year, and flooding is becoming more common due to rising sea levels and the weight of tourism. There are other strategies cities are using to fight back. In Dubrovnik, Croatia, made famous by Game of Thrones, they've installed cameras to monitor crowds and set visitor caps. Tourists can also buy tickets to visit at certain times to avoid overcrowding. These kinds of crowd management systems are growing more popular as a way to keep famous sites from being loved to death. For tourists, there's a simple way to help: travel during the off-season. Many places experience shoulder seasons, which are less busy but still offer great weather and experiences. This spreads out the flow of tourists and reduces pressure on popular sites. Not only is it better for the destination, but it also gives travelers a more peaceful and authentic experience. Chapter 5. Tourist Overload. Cities fighting back. Cities and destinations are fighting back against the flood of tourists in creative ways. In some places, overtourism has gotten so bad that locals have taken to the streets in protest. One example is Barcelona, where residents have been vocal about the negative effects of mass tourism. Rents have skyrocketed, neighborhoods have been transformed into tourist zones, and locals are feeling pushed out. As a result, the city has implemented strict regulations on short-term rentals like Airbnb, reducing the number of tourist accommodations. Another city taking action is Amsterdam. Known for its beautiful canals and rich history, it's also become a party hotspot for tourists. To curb rowdy behavior, the city banned guided tours in the red light district and restricted new hotel openings in the city center. Amsterdam has also launched campaigns aimed at quality over quantity tourism, hoping to attract more culturally minded visitors instead of just partygoers. Then there's Iceland. After its tourism boom, thanks to Instagram-worthy waterfalls and the Game of Thrones effect, Iceland saw over 2 million tourists in 2019, almost 6 times its population. To prevent environmental degradation, the country started charging fees to access certain natural areas, and in some cases, they've limited access altogether to protect fragile landscapes. A big part of the solution is education. Many cities are starting to push for responsible tourism campaigns. These campaigns encourage tourists to respect local laws, support local businesses, and reduce their environmental impact. For instance, New Zealand launched its Tiaki Promise, which asks visitors to care for the country's land, sea, and culture. These strategies aim to shift the behavior of tourists and make travel more sustainable in the long run. If you enjoyed this video and want to learn more about responsible travel, don't forget to subscribe. Let's explore how we can all make a positive impact on the world through our travel choices.